Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Wednesday, the 3rd of December. So, what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about something that every shop owner encounters. And our jobs are being experts, right? And when to tell the customer it's just simply not worth fixing. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is a weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. Christmas is getting closer, folks. So, when do you say enough is enough, right? And I can tell you that I've had machines come in that I knew weren't worth fixing, but the customer was dead set on it. And the thing you have to remember is you're the expert, okay? You know what things cost. And you have to guide the customer to the right answer. And that is, it's not worth fixing. The cost to fix it would be far outweigh what it's worth. Now, the only time that we don't do that per se, and I still kind of try to guide the customer that direction, is when we're working on the bigger equipment like tractors, the old tractors that dad had or grandpa had or this, that. And they're willing to put the extra money into it to get it running and looking nice again so they can use it. And those are the kind of like the exceptions. But the customer still knows, and it hears from me saying, look, by the time we get what we need invested in it, it's going to be more than what you could sell it for, what the going value is of it. And they don't care. And if they're willing to spend the money, I'm willing to spend the time to do it. But on a lawnmower, that's a different kind of animal, right? And we can start off with the ones that come in that either the decks are shot because they didn't take care of it, and you've patched the deck 3 or 4 times already for them. I can remember a customer that we had that had a zero turn, it's a Tory belt. And the first thing that it came in for was loose motor mounts. So we tightened the motor mounts, but they had egg-shaped the holes. So we welded washers on them to center the holes so that the motor couldn't move, even being tightened down. And then the deck. The deck, when we first got it, there was a couple of spots that were getting weak and you could see through the deck. So we keep a lot of sheet metal around, light stuff, and we use the wire feed 110 and just go ahead and patch the decks and then paint them up so that the rust will not continue. But when we picked it up there, this machine we've gotten it through 5 years, and it shouldn't have made it through the first year. When we went back, he was having deck problems, and he had lost both of the deck hangers in the back. So he had baling twine holding the deck up and hooked. The only thing the saving grace was we had deck hangers on a machine up back. So, and the deck by that point was pretty rotted. So we swapped out decks on it. And we sold him the deck for $100 off a donor, put it on his, and it was good. Then the next year it came in, had low compression, and the engine wasn't worth rebuilding. What other option do we have? Because my tendency is when I'm running a shop, is if I think that the bill is going to get expensive, I try to come up with options for the customer. We can do A, B, or C, and it puts it into their court. So that year, the engine got swapped out, and we had a donor that had a good engine but a bad deck, so we put the engine onto that. He got 3 years so far. And we did that the last 2 years. It should have never made it past the first year, but he was bound to determine that the cost of a new machine, that machine was around 2 grand, and by replacing the deck for $100, the engine for 125 plus labor, he felt that it was still the cheapest way out. I would have never done anything with it when it came in the first time if it was mine. Because here's the difference, folks. When I was growing up, and like many of you, when you bought a piece of equipment, you took care of it. It was an investment. Something that you wanted to keep for a long period of time. In saying that, most everybody did their own service work. What I can remember with my grandfather, we changed our own oil in our lawnmowers and rototillers, and sharpened our own blades, and did all those things ourselves. And my grandfather had a notebook, and he used to keep track of when the service was done, and he would write in that book what he did and when. And it was always garage kept when we weren't using it. And like the push mower that belonged to him, every couple of mowings he would tilt it up and scrape all the grass from the deck and blow it off. He always blew off the top. And that's what started me into the lawn care business. I think I was 11. Try to give an 11-year-old a push mower. Everybody's so fearful they're going to cut their feet off. But you got to show them how to use it, right? But I wanted to make money to buy stuff. And I was told if you want stuff, you need to earn money to have that, to buy it. So at 11, I had a lawn care business of 5 yards. And I did it every yard with a push mower. And I had a 5-gallon can of gas. And I would set it and strap it with a bungee to the push mower. And I would push that lawnmower to every job that I had. And I can remember when I was 12 and a half or 13, I graduated to a snapper, rear drive, with a little, I don't know what it was, 30-inch cut maybe. And I was like golden. I had a riding machine that I could just drive around. And my grandfather taught me when I first bought it about maintenance and taking care of it and making it last. You don't see that now. You don't see that when it comes through brand new. It's so cheaply built that they're not even making parts for a lot of stuff. That's the other thing that you have to look at is when you're trying to tell the customer whether it's worth fixing or not. A lot of times after 4 or 5 years, the parts have been discontinued. The conventional way, OEM parts or aftermarket. Chinese probably got it on eBay or Amazon, but when it comes to where you normally get the parts, they've been discontinued. They've been discontinued because the big manufacturers have learned if they're processing all their stuff through a Chinese factory, good chances are there's a sister factory pushing them out under a generic name, the same tooling, the same everything, onto eBay and Amazon. Or it rejected or it was quality issues. So that's the second thing is not only when you're looking at whether it's worth fixing or not, can you even get the parts anymore? Does it have a bad drive motor that you can't get a replacement for? You know, is the engine on this last leg of where you're looking at a total rebuild? And if you were looking at buying an OEM replacement engine, a Briggs for a Briggs, then the rebuild would sound economical, right? But when you're looking at a Briggs to a Predator, and the Predator engine brand new with a warranty is cheaper than what your repair shop is willing to do with just parts. Not labor, parts. But that's the difference from back then to now is you had quality equipment, and if you took care of it, it would last 20, 30, 40 years. And some of the old timers in my area still have their riders that are 35, 40 years old. But I can also tell you those folks do maintenance on their own stuff. That's what they were taught. That's what I was taught. Is those things you did yourself. If you sent it to the repair shops because something wasn't running right in the engine and you didn't have the know-how and it was cheaper to have them do it than it was to have you screw it all up. So, I mean, when you're looking at stuff, if you have a boneyard like we normally have, but I had it cleaned up. It's not very big right now because I've stopped taking a lot of crap. Can you offer the customer a way out with a donor for a deck or for a motor? Those could save you some money. But if you don't have a deck and you don't have a motor sitting there that you can offer the customer, the cost to replace that deck with a new deck or to replace that motor with a new motor far outweighs what the machine is really worth, right? And you could take it the same thing with push mowers, chainsaws, weed eaters, the list goes on. Okay? So the obvious is you don't have the cost of new outweighs what it would be worth putting into the machine. The second is you can't get parts for it anymore. No longer available. And I'm seeing that a lot in the past 2 years. They're discontinuing a lot of stuff. Okay? So that's the other drawback. That you're going to have to say, sorry, we can't fix it because we can't get those parts. And unless you have a donor machine that's sitting right there that you can use, you're SOL, right? Third is customers tampering with it first. We talked about this the last couple of days here. That one of the biggest no-nos to me, and especially to Claude, is if somebody's already been in there. If you bring us a box of parts, I'm going to send you right back out that door. Because just the cost and labor to put it back together is going to far outweigh what the value is of it. And I understand a lot of people are trying to save money. But if you don't know what you're doing and you end up with a box of parts and you end up with missing bolts and nuts and this, we used to take them. Honestly, we used to take them and bring them into the shop. We'd put them out under the table, see everything that we've got and try to reassemble it. And never fails that there's bolts, nuts, jets missing from the unit to put it back together. So then we have to go around henpecking trying to find old nuts, bolts, and this and that. And what I started doing a number of years ago, and this is on you, Jason, is if we had a blown engine, instead of just throwing it up there in the junkyard, if I had time, I've got a box now. I know you're laughing at me. I got a box that as I'm tearing these engines apart, I'm not tearing them apart for the parts per se. I'm tearing them apart because I'm keeping all the bolts, nuts, washers, especially metric. Go to Tractor Supply and try to buy a metric bolt. I'm tearing them apart because those bolts and nuts have value. And when we get something where Claude drops a bolt or this or that, and now you're screwed, right? Nope. We go to Eric's big box, flip it open, and there you are. All these metric, different sizes, bolts, nuts, washers, you name it, it's in the box. I save it because they have value. If you just set it up in the boneyard, yeah, you could go up and grab it or whatever, but when you got snow on top of it, it's something different, right? So that's the other reason that you're going to have to say no, is because the customer's already been in it and the cost to put it all back together is going to be more than the unit's worth. Having a machine come in with a bent crank, bad engine, bad deck, bad drive motors, bad hydraulic pump. All of these things are big ticket items. You know, putting a tube in the tire is not a big ticket item. But swapping engines is. swapping decks is getting hydraulic pumps and drive motors that match the unit that you have. I don't have a boneyard of zero turns to pick from. Actually, I've got just the one Troy Bell up there that runs and drives, but the deck fell off it. So we parked it up there as a donor, so if somebody needed an engine, needed a drive, or if they came in, they had a great looking deck and the rest of it was trash, I'd sell them the unit, put their deck onto that one, and off they'd go. In the comments, what are telltale signs to you when you have to tell the customer it's not worth fixing? What I can tell you is sometimes the customer is going to disagree with what you're offering, but remember, you're the expert. You're the one that's doing the numbers. And the customer will thank you in the end. Once they get away from being just like adamant that they want it fixed, if you give them some time to think about it, they're going to come to the same reasoning most often as well. And that is, they will trust you more because you're looking out after them. They may not be at the moment, but they will in the long run. And that's how you build a good customer base, and that's being honest with your customer. You don't drag them along and put $150 in parts and labor into a $50 lawnmower. You don't. I mean, you're the expert. That's what you do. You fix people's problems, but you don't create more problems by overbilling somebody for something that it just wasn't worth it to start with. So on that note, you guys have a great Wednesday. It's snowing here. I'm headed for Tupper Lake to visit the wife, and we have a tractor to put back together. In the comments, what have you seen or can you imagine would be things that where you have to tell the customer it's not fixable? You guys enjoy your Wednesday.